The Bristol Board of Education. Maintaining a safe and secure learning environment for all students.
Our first item of business would be to stand up for the national anthem and the flags up on my left.
We don't have the pledge.
Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to put off the approval of the minutes, which is, oh, excuse me, check. We have a moment of silence for some of our past employees. Florence Quinlan was a teacher at Bingham and O'Connell from 1962 to 1968. Jeanette Michaels Mahana was a cafeteria worker from July 1 of 83 to August 1 of 89. Bob Ritchie, who was a drafting and technology teacher, Memorial Boulevard in Bristol Central from November 12th of 68 to December 1st of 1986. Lorette Began, a crossing guard from 9/1/1967 to 8/31/10. And Marion Conrad, a teacher at Ivy Drive, Hubble, and South Side, March 4th of 57 to June 30th of 88. Please pause a moment with me. Thank you.
1 minute. March is Board Member Appreciation Month, and I personally would like to thank our Board of Education. I don't know if the public is aware, but they are volunteers. There's no salary involved, and they put in an awful lot of hours, committee meetings that you don't necessarily see, in addition to the monthly board meeting. So on behalf of all of our staff, we thank you for the time that you give to our kids.
Okay, the next item was approval of the minutes, but I'm going to pause on those if we could, and we'll go on to the rest of the agenda and then come back. Commissioner Caggiano has contacted us and said he's on the way. He would like to speak to the minutes, and so we're going to hold off approving them until he gets here. So we'll move right on to committee reports, and we'll start with student achievement. Commissioner Dubey. Sorry to catch you drinking.
That's okay. The Student Achievement Committee met on Wednesday, February 21st, and it was a very interesting meeting. We discussed the school achievement reports and plans for a format for spring, and I think what we're looking at is we're going to be doing 2 nights. One night is going to include elementary school and middle schools, and one night will include high schools to go over their next generation accountability reports. Dr. Dieter gave a Wheeler Clinic update. And something that was very interesting was we did a K through 8 middle school report that Carly Fortin gave tremendous detail on. Unfortunately, she is not here tonight, so she will be here next month and will be able to address that to the full board because it was great. We also had a first reading of the information processing curriculum. And that's all. Thank you.
Any questions? If not, we'll go on to finance with Commissioner Bibber.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. We met immediately before this meeting tonight. Usually we're going to be meeting the evening before the board meeting, but with the impending storm, doing them the same night. I'm going to ask both, hang on one second, Mrs. Brown and Dr. Dieter to report on the Finance Committee. But before I do, one of the items that we talked about in finance was safety and security. There are a couple of issues that we are dealing with, one that would be impacting our budget, and that is we are going to be discussing hiring a full-time safety director. So that is something that we will talk about. We'll be handing that off to the Personnel Committee and figuring out how we can work that into our budget. The other thing that we are looking for, and this is an ask that we are giving to the city because this would fall into the police department's budget, we'd like to increase the number of student resource officers that we have. We currently have one at each high school, and we have one that rotates throughout the middle schools. We're hoping to have one that rotates between Chippens Hill and Northeast, and one that will rotate between the two K-8s. In addition to that, we're hoping to get another one who can be assigned to the elementary schools. The officers have been in and out of the schools a lot more lately, and we're having very, very positive results. So we'll keep you posted. Hopefully we'll be able to take care of all that. So for now, I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Brown to talk about the actual finance report.
Thank you. Good evening. Earlier this evening, we discussed our finance summary, which at first glance does look a little bit different than last month because our bottom line number that shows as available budget has changed from just over $12 million to negative $2,359,566. However, that is prior to the application of the revenues that we have realized already this year and will continue to accrue. The big difference is because the city finance department has drawn down our monies for our medical contribution. So that's why there was that big swing. Other than that, there is not much different to report. We still feel that we're going to be able to contribute towards the deficit that we currently have in special education. I don't see that that number has changed since last month. We expect that that will be slightly under $500,000 that we'll be able to contribute toward that deficit. Originally, we were forecasting a deficit in special education of $1.6 million. We have learned that we're going to get some additional revenues from our students from Puerto Rico and other areas that were affected by those storms. So Dr. Dieter will go over that with you. And unless you have particular questions, it's all yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. First, we'd like to report out on some of the trends that we've had this last month in special services, and most significantly has been the increase in risk assessments that we've completed over the past month. We do anecdotally feel there's probably a correlation with the uptick with recent events in the United States, specifically in Florida. So that's a number we continue to track, both our risk assessments that are done internally and in collaboration with emergency mobile psychiatric services. And we've seen an increase in the need for additional assessments and evaluations for that cohort of students that has enrolled from displaced students. While that number has remained fairly steady, the enrollment figures, the need for assessment has grown as we've engaged these students and as we need to complete comprehensive evaluations for them. So we'll continue to report on that in greater detail in our finance subcommittee. The next item I want to update you on is the displaced students. Our current enrollment, as I said, has maintained at 42 students. We had recent development at the end of this month at the federal level where there was a compromise budget passed by Congress, and they have set aside money for those students. So the different rates of reimbursement would be $8,500 for each displaced student, $9,000 for each that is non-English speaking, that would be level 1 in our vernacular, and $10,000 for all those students that are identified as receiving special education services. When we utilize that formula, we'll be looking at a reimbursement somewhere between $317,000 to $381,000, depending on what ultimately is decided on the state level. So we'll update you as that becomes clearer. And then lastly, our general enrollment Total new enrollment, regular and special education combined over this past month was 30 new students. Those arriving eligible for special education services was 10%, so 3. And this is the first month that we have trended lower than the state average for newly enrolled students, the percentage of newly enrolled students. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Okay, thank you.
And now the committee reports are done, we will move back to item number 2, approval of the minutes. You received the minutes in your packets last Friday, and I imagine you've all got a chance to review them, so I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any comments, questions, or corrections?
I do have some general comments. I was lucky enough to attend the FOIA meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and I did notice in this month's meeting minutes in particular, awful lot of comments, which are nice but not necessary. Personally, I don't know if I said exactly what it was portrayed regarding term limits, but I do want to state publicly for the record, I'm not for or against term limits necessarily, but I thought that came across as that I was for term limits. And then I also noticed that with all the comments on there, there were no comments about the 2 no votes that I cast on 2 different items. So if we're going to do comments, in my opinion, we should do all comments. And I thought, for the record, if I'm going to be the sole no vote, then maybe comments should be there for that. And you know, again, there's a lot of opinion and comment in this from commissioners, which is fine, but I just think we're a little inconsistent about it. So,
would you like to make a modification in minutes?
I think that would be a little too excessive, quite honestly, because again, there's comments. Quite a bit of comments about, you know, in committee reports that are just more than we need, and I just want to make it a public statement that I think we should look at the way we report our minutes. And again, this is a learning after the FOI meeting. We don't need all of the, what could be considered as opinion here. So, but that's it.
Okay, any other comment? I think you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Motion carries.
I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Pardon me?
I wasn't here, so I...
Okay, yes, abstentions. I haven't gotten those yet, but yes, abstentions. So, motion carries. We will now move on to the chairman's report. And before I begin, I know Mr. O'Brien is looking at that lengthy number of items, and so I'm going to preempt him and say that several of those were a carryover from last month, where we had a snow day, so we were trying to run through a quick meeting. So you have to give me a little bit of a pass. The first item is the CREC statistical report. And each year CREC puts out what's called a comprehensive annual financial report. We put them one out for the city as well. And most of it's information that we're not interested in, especially in terms of CREC and their operational figures and amounts they spend and so forth. But there is a statistical section which talks about a lot about all the towns, but Bristol's one of the 35 towns in the CREC district, and so I thought I would highlight some of those statistical reports, and then I will, I gave that report for you so that you can look at it on your own leisure. Okay. Sorry, my screen left me. So one of the items, we hear a lot about people leaving Bristol, and I thought it was interesting that our population has only declined 800 people from 2007 to 2017. We're still holding fast at about 60,147 residents. Now moving on to CREC. Oops, I lost the screen, keeps leaving on me.
It's an omen.
It's a what?
It's an omen.
Yes, it's an omen. In 2007, we purchased $950,000 worth of CREC services, and in 2017, we purchased $2.342 million worth of CREC services. So you can see how much that's grown and how much we're using the services of CREC. For those of you in the audience who don't know what CREC is, the Capital Region Education Council, it's one of the 6 regional education service centers which was created in statute so that school districts could purchase services on an economic way that they might not have to use a lot in a district. It helps school districts save money. Our student enrollment has declined about 100 students from 15-16 to 16-17. But our average daily membership, which includes those students that go to our magnet schools, has only declined about 60 students during that same period. Our per pupil expenditure remains the third lowest of the 35 capital region towns. The only towns that spend less money than Bristol are Ellington and New Britain. The total number of students attending our CREC schools in 2016-17 was 158, with 60 attending the arts magnets, and I'd only point that out is because that's one of the rationale for us supporting a Memorial Boulevard Magnet School. And that does not include any of the students who go to the Hartford Magnets, which Dr. Galloway, the next time he gives his enrollment report, will expand upon those students that are going to those magnets. But I just wanted to give that to you for your information. So that concludes my topic on CREC. Now we move on to CJEF, the Connecticut Coalition of Justice and Educational Funding. Many of you know I've spoken about this for a lot of years, about the trials of the court case. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not agree with us as plaintiffs, and we were disappointed with the result of the case. It seems that they didn't really look at the merit of the case, because both sides stipulated about 180 stipulations as to what we agreed on fact. So they agreed on the facts, but they decided on the law that they did not want to delve into school finance and left it up to the legislature. So the steering committee, which I am a member of, representing Bristol Board of Education, has decided to stay in existence. There was some discussion as to whether we would disband or not. But the group is a very diverse and unusual coalition. It includes municipal members, it includes Board of Education members, it includes CABE, it includes a lot of other organizations that support education throughout Connecticut. So the coalition unanimously decided that they wanted to stay together. We're going to reduce the dues to about 50% and continue to lobby and advocate on behalf of school finance and school funding in Connecticut. After our April board meeting, I will be attending the National School Board Association meeting in San Antonio. We have some great speakers lined up, and I'm also going to be Connecticut's representative to the Delegate Assembly. CREC and CABE are supporting me and sending me to that meeting, and so I look forward to sharing a lot of the information that I gained from that, and I'll ask the superintendent to put it up on the web portal like we've done in the past, any of the information that I get that we might learn and benefit from. We're not going to talk about CABE on the Hill because it was supposed to happen today, but for our student representatives, I will not be able to attend with you, but it is going to be next Thursday. If you're able to attend, it would be great, and I think you get a lot out of it. We had a roundtable with all the Alliance district members at CABE, facilitated it. We met with the Commissioner Diana Wenzel and Desi Nesmith. Many of you remember Desi. He spoke at our convocation a couple of years ago, I think. And, you know, very phenomenal speaker, and he runs the turnaround program for the State Department of Education, and the Alliance District comes into it. The Alliance District is 30 school districts, and then 3 that they brought back in. So it's really 33 of the school districts who have the lowest performance indicators that the accountability index that we evaluate. But it also excludes all school districts less than 1,000 students. It excludes all the technical schools and all of the magnet schools and the regional school districts. So a lot of times people say, oh, you're on the list of, you know, one of the worst 30, but that's really not a true statement. So I don't want you to think that, and we never think that when we accept that grant. We use that grant for a lot of resource and innovation that drives our accountability and our work in the district. And so Desi went over the program. We've been renewed for another 5 years, so we have the grant till June 30th of 2022. And so we're hopeful that the state doesn't continue to cut that grant like they have in the last couple of years, but it has really helped us drive our progress over the last 5 years, and we're glad to have that designation again. And then this last item is we were notified by the United Way that one of our employees, I don't even like to use that word, but one of our great staff, and they told me I can't speak about the award, but the person right next to my left is going to be receiving the Spirit of Caring Award, and she's going to be awarded on April 5th at the DoubleTree, and all of you are invited to attend and purchase a ticket and help us recognize this great lady who is, I can't say anything, but has done so much for Bristol and the Bristol community over the years. So I don't want to ruin that night for her, so I won't say anything in specific, but we're very proud of her, as you can all imagine. And that concludes my report. We'll now move on to student representatives, and we will have, I think we're going to have Bristol Eastern first, because you're the state champs for wrestling for the second year, so I think I'll let you go first. How's that?
Good evening, Dr. Morrow and Board of Education Commissioners. This evening, I'd like to share a little of what I have found in regards to standards-based reporting systems. I have interviewed students from all grade levels within our high school. I was able to ask the students their thoughts about how this change would affect their stress levels and their existing thoughts on how our current system works. Many of our students I interviewed thought this change would decrease their stress levels by making competition between students decrease, and students would gain self-confidence by not having to worry about the number and instead on what needs to be understood. While students may have less stress not worrying about competition, they then worry about how they will know exactly where they stand. A senior girl said, "For us, if you exceed, it's over 65. But she, like many others, questioned how they will know if they are close to succeeding, but not quite yet. Another student, who was a 10th grade girl, said that if you slightly grasp the concept, but not fully, it would be hard to determine if you're almost passing or meeting expectations. It's better to just have the numbers." An 11th grade boy had said, though, that it's less pressure because it'll tell you how close you are to meeting the standards. I'm not sure if the reporting systems would change to a check in either not yet meeting expectations, or exceeding expectations, but I feel that a benchmark system with these three could allow for healthy school competition while still alleviating the stress of students. Most students tend to lean positively on this subject, but while talking to teachers, I have found that math and science teachers are less likely to favor this reporting system. A calculus teacher said extra effort is always worth extra points, which couldn't be shown by the standards alone. A chemistry teacher had also said, "I don't know in a class like this because I'm looking for concrete answers, and if you don't get those, I'd be giving a lot of not yet meeting." If at some point there is real discussion about changing report systems, teachers and administrators would need new training because most have some difficulty in trying to use the system already. Currently, students have folders for important documents in school. These folders are in advisory classes and have general school standards on the back. These standards are supposed to be filled in as we completed high school, but nobody knew exactly how to show specific achievements for these standards. I have copies of these folders if you'd like them.
For those of you who aren't aware, our student reps attended the Cape CAPS conference in November, and there was a panel of students who spoke about standards-based report cards, and they've taken the initiative to look at their own student body and see how students would feel about this.
Yes. So I'd like to also speak of a controversy topic. being expressed at school. It's the walkout on March 14th. So this walkout is widely known as a gun control protest, but instead of getting into politics, a group of students have come together to make the day about supporting each other and remembering those lost in all of the school shootings. So March 14th at our school is going to be a day in school where the concerns of the students are heard while still keeping the safety and integrity of our school intact. This day, though, has brought many concerns in from the students. Some still don't understand that this day is meant for students to be heard while still keeping them safe in school. On a brighter note, Bristol Eastern is holding a week of mindfulness this week. Yesterday, students were able to look for purple posters with healthy and inspirational messages created by the BE Clean Club. Earlier this morning, students were shown a video in homeroom about self-talk. Tomorrow, there will be an extended advisory period for a 3-point basketball contest where students and teachers can come together for a fun game. On Thursday, during all 4 lunch waves, there will be a community fair with many different organizations to share what they do and how they impact the community. Friday, our school is going purple. Purple shirts will be seen to support healthy lifestyles free from substances and stopping the stigma surrounding addiction. I'd also like to share a few things being talked about at Bristol Eastern. A few of our students made the front page of the newspaper for participating in a cooperative program where one of our science teachers, Mrs. Kelma, brings a group of students to help the 5th graders at Mountain View Elementary School. These students have a lot of fun in the program, which meets on the last Monday of every month. Another program at school called Friends of Rachel is starting their annual Relay for Life team. The club, which focuses on kindness, raised over $6,000 last year to help fight cancer. The club hopes to beat that number this year by advertising a raffle of new technology like laptops and an iPad to students that register on the team and participate in fundraising. The hope is to make this a school-wide initiative by supporting our friends and teachers with or affected by cancer. Student Council is another club doing good things. On February 24th, the club hosted a blood drive in honor of a little girl named Daniela, who was diagnosed with beta thalassemia. This blood drive collected over 50 pints of blood in honor of Daniela and her family. Student Council is also going to be holding a Mr. BEHS competition this year, and the whole school is excited for a night of fun and laughter. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Next we have Olivia.
How are you? You're reserved.
You're reserved.
I thought I felt something. Okay. Anyway, good evening, Dr. Moreau and Board of Ed Commissioners. It's good to be back. Tonight I have prepared a presentation on standards-based grading, incorporating both student and faculty opinions. But before I begin, I would like to proudly announce that our annual Push-Ups for Patriots 24-hour fundraising event had nearly 400 attendees February 24th and raised over $5,000 towards the Semper Fi Fund. At the end of February, Mr. Winninger and I recorded a podcast discussing standards-based grading that was then played in the advisory the following Monday to introduce students to an idea that they had likely never heard of before. Then, this past Monday, I emailed all students and staff an electronic survey to record their thoughts on standards-based grading, making my AP statistics teacher very proud, taking what I've learned out into the real world. So the survey begins with a brief definition of standards-based grading. Grading and academic reporting that are based on students demonstrating understanding or mastery of the knowledge and skills of specific learning targets, and it's accompanied by a picture for easier understanding. The survey received 179 responses, which were made up of mainly seniors, followed by the juniors, sophomores, freshmen, and teachers. Of this sample, nearly 3/4 had previously heard of standards-based grading. I then asked whether or not students and faculty felt that standards-based grading would be a more accurate representation of a student's work. 51.9% of the sample, over half of the students and faculty represented, either disagreed or strongly disagreed with this statement. 26.3%, roughly 1/4, remained neutral, while 21.7% agreed or strongly agreed with this statement. I then asked if they felt the current grading system was a better representation of their work, where 60.3% agreed or strongly agreed, 24.6% remained neutral, and 15% disagreed or strongly disagreed. Optional margins were left to respond with students' GPAs and additional comments. I wanted to see if there would be a correlation between higher GPAs and a preference for the traditional grading system. As suspected, of those that responded their GPA, as well as a comment, all favored traditional opposed to standards-based. One senior commented, "Why change a specific and accurate 0 to 100% grading system to a rough estimation of student potential? Partial mastery of target is vague reasoning to score a student a 2 out of 4. The current system is entirely objective in grading physical work. The new one sets up a system in which your grade is seemingly dependent on your teacher's subjective preference." A junior said, "The standards-based system is too general and not specific enough. There's a significant difference between 80 and 90 and 90 and 100. The standards-based system would not be fair to students that work harder and longer for a better grade." A sophomore said, "I'm not a big fan of this standards-based grading system. Even though this is my first time ever hearing of it, I don't like how it's so broad and not as specific as the traditional grading system." One freshman worried that it would be more difficult for universities to judge a student and review their application with a standards-based grading policy. This is when I called admissions offices within Connecticut to hear how they handle students submitting such grades. UConn, CCSU, and UHart all stated that they use a conversion formula to exchange standards-based grades into formal GPAs, while Yale, a highly competitive school, stated that they see many different types of grading systems and therefore do not convert them, but review the grades as they are. Regarding teacher feedback, one teacher said, "I believe holistic grading can improve morale, student production, and student participation for world language classes, but I do think this would be a difficult shift for all subjects," which emphasizes what Madison was saying about the math and science classes as well. In conclusion, people are now becoming more aware that standards-based grading may become a new way to grade high school students. Based on the survey I circulated at Bristol Central, there is a preponderance of negative feedback. However, with more information and further education on the topic, I firmly believe opinions would adjust accordingly. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions for me?
When you heard this presentation at the CAVE conference, what was the sentiment of your fellow colleagues from other districts?
The students who were reporting on it, they seemed to really enjoy it. They were all very excited about it. My initial reaction was that being a more competitive student, I want to know my exact percentage in my class. I want to be able to know my rank in my class, my exact GPA. So for me, I know personally, I wouldn't really be a fan of it. And that's what I was seeing in a lot of the students who were responding, because you're getting a lot of the passionate students who don't really want something like this.
So were you thinking that the students that were represented at the conference were not competitive students?
No, that's not what I meant.
Okay, no, I'm not trying to play gotcha with that. I was just curious if it was a different profile of a student than you, maybe, that was running it.
I'm not entirely sure. They sounded like they were very good students. They were all very excited about it. Maybe in trying it, you get more positive feedback because people hear about it and they're more scared to try. But if you were to implement it within world language classes with rubrics and you're getting like classes that aren't necessarily one strict answer, you'd be able to get a positive feedback instead of just negative comments who don't want to see it happen.
I think you ought to get extra credit for coming tonight and doing this. So you better tell Mr. Windsor, whoever your teacher, that you deserve some extra credit. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Through the chair, do our representatives know what their plans are for the fall after graduation?
I went to UConn, the Harvard branch.
Awesome, congratulations.
I was just accepted to UConn as well, but I'm actually retaking the SATs this weekend with the essay for a school in California I'm looking at. Most likely UConn.
Great, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll now have our superintendent report.
Good evening, Commissioners, Councilman Kelly. The first thing I'd like to do is actually to call out one of our central office team members who is being honored as an outstanding school administrator at UConn, class of 01. That would be Dr. Sam Galloway. So the write-up is as Director of Human Resources for the Bristol Public Schools since 2014. Dr. Galloway has implemented a centralized registration process, increased teacher and administrator diversity, and evaluated and advocated for 2 high schools, resulting in increased graduation rates, among other accomplishments. He previously served as principal of Bloomfield High School in Bloomfield, Connecticut for 4 years, where he increased the graduation rate and led the school through a full transformation. Dr. Galloway's prior experience includes very unusual background as a retired state trooper for the state of Connecticut and as a training officer for the United States Army Reserves. I plan on attending the dinner to honor you at UConn on St. Patrick's Day of all nights. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I'd also like to recognize a student from Bristol Eastern. Stand, please. Thank you. This is Megan Perry, and she won the Connecticut Association of Athletic Directors #1 female state finalist for submission of an essay entitled How Athletics Has Impacted My Life. She's going to be honored with a $1,000 check, awesome, at the annual dinner held on March 22nd at the Sheraton Rocky Hill. If she's selected as the Connecticut winner, she would be eligible to receive another $1,500 grant, and the national winner will receive an additional $2,500 grant. Thank you very much for representing us well. Congratulations.
Dr. Moreau, would you be able to have her send the essay around to the board members?
Yes, please.
Electronically?
Give that to Rogers, and we'd love to read it. Thank you. Update on our 2018-19 budget. Last evening, our team presented the first night of presentation to the Board of Finance. This is the first year we've been given 2 nights, and that's as a result of the feedback we received from members of the Board of Finance and City Council who came to our presentations. We had 4 for our Board of Education, and asked that we present over 2 nights to really tell the story of what we do in the Bristol Public Schools and how our funding is utilized to help our students achieve at higher levels. We're going to be presenting again Monday night, March 12th at 6 p.m. in Council Chambers. You are all welcome to join us. Madison talked about March 14th, which is the National School Walkout that was supposedly to have students walking out of school. We're pretty pleased at the plans that have been created within our 2 high schools. There will be a letter going home to parents to explain the program. During the time, and it's 10 o'clock for 17 minutes, students will be meeting with their advisors, coming together as a school community, and reminding one another to look for the best in each other, to be a positive influence, to speak and act with kindness, actions that are so imperative in today's world. Our school principals will be communicating their specific plans with families in the coming week, and it's very important that you understand that in no way is this plan a protest either for or against the Second Amendment. Now I would like to recognize and ask Linda Rich to join me. She is the director of our Family Resource Centers, and I think she's got some friends with her here, a little cheerleading group. The work that she does, she is so humble, but she does amazing work, and so it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Moreau and Commissioners, for this opportunity to talk about the Family Resource Centers. I have so much to tell you, but in the interest of time, I have folders here for each of you with a lot of details, so I'm only going to be highlighting a few of our programs. We do so many things, and we're getting my first slide up soon. These are our core programs, and under each of these programs, we have multitudes of services. And people tend to think of us based on just what they interact with us about. If they are coming to our play and learn groups, that's what the FRC does. If they receive a food backpack, that's what the FRC does. If they're part of our literacy programs, that's what the FRC does. But really, we're much larger and broader than that. Confucius says, life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Over the past 5 years, just the past 5 years, we have been in Bristol, starting at Southside School 21 years ago when we first came and opened a center under Dr. Wasta at that time. But over the past 5 years, it's important for you to know that the FRC has brought in $1.4 million in state grants and another additional $500,000 from local foundations, community organizations, the United Way. It's a significant amount of funding that is able to bring critical services and programs needed to meet the social and behavioral needs of our students and the vast family needs of our Title I schools. It can seem really complicated to somehow address all these challenges that our students and their families bring to our school doors. However, your FRCs are experts at responding to the families and the students that your principals bring to us daily. Despite the vast needs that exist in our schools, the state, in its infinite wisdom, has significantly decreased FRC funding, resulting in a $100,000 loss to our FRCs in the Bristol schools. As a result, I have had to streamline services and reduce FRC staffing by a third, and may, at some point, have to close the center. Hopefully not. After all, what choice do I have? To put it simply, we have no choice but to step up, to knock again, to ask for more, to do more, because our families, students, administrators, and teachers deserve no less. That is what is required of leadership. I am particularly grateful for Dr. Moreau and her leadership and all she has done for our schools, including rolling up her sleeves and wrapping 900 presents on FRC's Regifting Day for students. Of course, the heartbeat of the school depends on our principals, and I am fortunate to work with the very best, Mrs. Levasseur, Mrs. DeLeo, Mrs. Nobilski, Mr. Gaudette, Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Hill, and Dr. Huber. And the actual work of the FRC could not get done without my amazing staff. I'll call your names, you can raise your hands. There's Sandra and Natalie at Green Hills, and Gail at Southside, Sarah and Hillary at West Bristol, and Hillary now splits her time. You could stand up for a minute so they really get a good look at you. Just up and down, you can do it. And Hillary now splits her time between West Bristol and Southside. I am very, very proud to report that a fully staffed FRC during the 2016-17 school year, your FRCs did something for parents, toddlers, grandparents, single parents, mothers, fathers, first graders. In fact, we did something for every student in the school. Those somethings added up to doing something for someone. You can hit the next one. 8,419 times. I have to admit, It even surprised me how large that number was. But before I became too proud, a person I truly respect said to me, "So what?" So what? I was expecting wow. You didn't mean wow? No. To put it simply, the number of times you do something only matters when it makes a difference. I have found that even one small act of kindness can make a huge difference. So, does the FRC make a difference? Do we make a family, a student, an entire school system better than it was before? Let's look closely at just a couple of our programs. The Food Backpack Program. A backpack of food goes home each Friday to help families extend their food budget and to prevent the very real negative social and academic effect of food insecurity. Currently, the FRC school serves a total of 136 children who benefit from this program for the entire school year. If you look at this slide, and this is all based on current research, we know when kids are brought up with food insecurity and can't depend on where that's coming from, it affects their behavior, it affects their social emotional development, it affects their reading and math scores. So for 136 children and our partnership with Food Share, it's making a difference. FRC's Parents as Teachers Home Visiting Program, of which Bristol FRCs were recently honored as a Blue Ribbon affiliate, meeting the highest best practice standards for parenting education. FRC parent educators go into the home and work with parents of young children once or twice a month, depending on the needs of the family. And they share best parenting practices and early childhood development information with them. And they complete a thorough formal family assessment. All the research data on PAT gathered nationally and locally documents parents gaining 3 or more additional parenting skills each year they remain in the program. And they can remain in the program till their child is 5, so it could be as much as 5 years. Another example, and this is what this next slide talks about, is our Ages and Stages developmental screening program funded by the United Way. 122 children were screened by my parent educators. And we found that 24% of them were lagging behind developmentally in one of the developmental domains. So when that happens, our parent educator works with the parent, gives them activities they can do with the child in order to strengthen that domain. Then we found 11% of those 122 children we screened were showing significant developmental delays. They needed further assessments. They needed birth to 3. We needed to get the pediatrician involved. And we needed to get the parent involved, because it can be very difficult when you hear your child is struggling, right, as a parent. And the parent educator made sure that these kids get the help that they want, that they need. And my point about talking about all of this, because I heard about the struggling special education budget earlier, is when we can do our work, prevention, we are saving thousands of dollars in the future in special education costs on kids that aren't identified early. And our FRC is doing that every day. And I did have the next slide, which talks about how much we can improve children's life chances by intervening early and often. And it's very significant. There's just absolutely no doubt about it that the work that the FRC does, you might not think of it because they're not in school yet, but they're partnering with with the school, they're coming into the school, and we're making sure that they're ready when it's time for them to come to school. The next program, and I'll let you know when to switch, that I wanted to talk about is our Raising Readers program. It's funded by the Stocker Foundation. The FRC pursued this grant to address the number of students entering first grade already behind their peers in literacy skills. The program provides after-school tutoring by certified teachers. Mrs. Subnetsky and Mrs. Corso, retired teachers, are at West Bristol, and Kathy Lanahan and Ms. Gauvin are at Green Hills. It takes the teachers giving the extra instructional time, because we know that's what our students need, instructional time by qualified teachers. And then we require the parents to take a Raising Readers class that's led by my certified parent educators. And it creates a team of the tutors who are working individually with the kids, small groups. We have 12 to 15 students and 2 teachers. And the parents learning about how to support a literacy-rich home environment, and the first grade teachers. And together, as a team, they work together to improve our first graders' literacy skills. You can show the slide. If you look at this slide, this is last year's results. The column is the number of children in the program last year. So if you look at the first line, we had 7 students starting, according to Fontes and Pinnell, starting first grade at A, and even one below A, which ideally we want them to be a C or a D. And amazingly, the average levels, and that measuring tool is really about skills, not necessarily levels. But these kids were advancing faster and quicker, huge amounts of levels of obtaining their literacy skills. And I really believe it all came to being because of the extra instructional time, because the parents needed to make a commitment to be involved in this program, and 3, that the teachers could work hand in hand with the first grade teachers and build on the skills that were available for them. But however, even better than that, because I have to tell you the truth about this, when we start the Raising Readers program in the beginning, our first graders are crying and complaining and saying, "No, I don't want to go." We even had a student say, "I can't read, I don't want to do this." And she thought we would be mad at her. And it's really hard to believe that a student would feel that discouraged. If you can imagine, if you're a first grade and you're feeling this discouraged, already noticing maybe I'm not as quick or as fast as some of the other kids in my class. And what happens by halfway through that program is their confidence grows. They start to believe that they can, and they will. And they offer to read. They offer to read to their classmates. They offer to read to their teachers. They want to take the books home. It's a pretty amazing thing, and not an easy program to administrate, but a great program that makes a huge difference. I don't have a meter for confidence, but you can see it. And when a parent comes up to you and says, "Thank you, I struggled a lot in school, and I was worried about my son, but now we all read together at home," that kind of feels really good. Feels really good. I do have a parent here tonight, Mary Beth Hicking. She and Ron have 6 amazing children, ages 3 to 18, and I've just asked her to just say a few things. And maybe Kathy too? Yeah.
I'll let you go first. So before I came up here, I wanted to ask my kids, who have been through the FRC stuff for years now, what the FRC meant to them and something that they all remembered about the FRC. Now, the oldest, Noah, graduated last year, and he told me the thing he remembered the best about the FRC was having breakfast together with his teachers. Kyle, my 16-year-old, he also said he liked the breakfast, and of course, though, he said he liked it for the yummy donuts, but... and Hunter, he liked being able to choose gifts for his family, to be able to, choose himself and bring home to his family. And my youngest, who didn't make it through here and is out in the hallway somewhere, I asked him, and he actually said they taught him to share. So, and Jasmine, she wanted to say what the FRC did for her.
They gave me a shirt, and they gave us paws.
Yeah, they give you paws, and they gave you a shirt. And why did you need a shirt at school? Because something happened?
Because I couldn't walk up the stairs.
She was having trouble with her dress at school, so they were able to give her a different shirt to wear during the day. Okay? You can go back and sit. Thank you. My grown kids remember stuff still about the FRC that the FRC has done for them. Things that they may not remember because they were younger, but Hunter, when we were struggling and going through things with him, they helped me refer me to speech therapy for him. And he ended up coming into kindergarten on level with his speech. So something that, if I hadn't been involved in the FRC and they hadn't been able to point me in the right direction, we could have started off in kindergarten with speech problems. So we were able to intervene early with that. I have that list that Linda put up of the programs that they did. I wanted to say I probably have done about 90% of them. Parents as Teachers has been great, struggling with some stuff with Grayson, and they have been helping point me in the right direction on everything I need to do, even just moral support. Just to point me in the right direction of where I can go to get help, what I need to do for them, and it's just, I can't say enough about them, and I don't know where I would be some of these things without some of the programs they have.
Thank you so much for coming and bringing her families. I couldn't go into everything, but our morning breakfast, when parents and kids can come into the school and sit down with teacher in a relaxed fashion and have a nice breakfast and start the day, I can tell you that makes a world of difference when a teacher needs to sit down with a parent and talk about what's happening in the classroom. And it also makes a world of difference for the parent to be able to say, hey, this is what's happening at home, and this is, how can I help? What can I do? Natalie is our child and family advocate at Green Hills, and she does a lot of translating, and we were going to have another parent here tonight. In respect for this parent, she's going to read what the parent sent a letter in Spanish, and then she's going to translate it.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start with reading the letter in Spanish. A quien corresponda, estoy escribiendo esta carta para indicar la ayuda que Natalie Torres y Sandra Golden me han brindado debido a mi barrera del idioma. Tengo 2 niños en la escuela y Natalie siempre ha estado ahí para las conferencias de padre y cualquier otra reunión que tenga con los maestros de mis hijos. También me ha ayudado a mantener a nuestra familia al día sobre los cambios escolares y los volantes importantes. Cada vez que tengo una pregunta o inquietud, me siento lo suficiente segura para preguntarles. Agradezco enormemente la ayuda y asistencia que he recibido de Natalie Torres y Sandra Golden. Sinceramente, soy la Pesantes Vasquez. And now I'll read what most of you guys understand. To whom it may concern, I am writing this letter to state how much help Natalie Torres and Sandra Golden has been to me because of my language barrier. I have 2 children in school, and Natalie has always been there for parent-teacher conferences and whatever other meeting I have with my children's teachers. It has helped me understand what my child is learning and what they need to improve. Natalie has also helped by keeping our family updated on any school changes and important flyers. Whenever I have a question or concern, I feel confident enough to ask them. I greatly appreciate the help and assistance I have received from Natalie Torres and Sandra Golden. Sincerely, Zoila Pesantes Vasquez. Thank you.
Green Hills keeps Natalie very busy, and she does an excellent job of doing a lot of translation. We're in the PPTs, we're in the student meetings, and thank you, Natalie, for doing that. I'm just about done here. These folders, I'm going to let you have those now. And in these folders are more details about our programs, but it's also letters from families. So maybe you can just pass them because I know I'm not the only person on the agenda tonight. Please take some time tonight before bed to at least read the letters, a few letters that we have from parents in your folders. I promise you it will warm your heart and give you a good night's sleep. Seriously, I should have listened to Confucius and simply said, your FRCs are here for all families and all kids, and we are making a difference every day. And I thank you very much for your listening ear.
Now we move on to the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull anything out of the consent agenda? Does anybody wish to pull anything out of the consent agenda? If not, I'm ready for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved. We have a second.
Second.
It's moved and seconded. Did you get the maker? Okay, good. All right. Any questions on the motion? If not, I think you're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're now down to public comment. So we don't have any public comment. Okay.
What?
We're now down to deliberated items. Turn it over to Dr. Burrow again.
Well, thank you very much. It is my pleasure to introduce our next Assistant Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Kate Carbone, who for many of you is a very familiar face. She was the principal of Chippens Hill Middle School from 2006 until 2013, during which time Chippens Hill was named Middle School of the Year by the Connecticut Association of Schools. She comes to us most recently as the Chief of Elementary and Middle Grade Education in the Hartford Public Schools, and we just can't wait till April 10th when she comes and starts full-time. Please join me in welcoming Kate.
Chairman Wilson, Commissioners, Dr. Moreau, I thank you for this opportunity to serve the students, families, and staff of the Bristol Public School System. I was fortunate to serve as the principal of Chippens Hill Middle School and am honored and humbled to have many of my former teaching partners with me this evening, and am inspired by their continued commitment for leadership throughout the district. So that's pretty awesome. I look forward to working with you to further your vision for the public school system, and am confident that together we will help improve the conditions for students in Bristol. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is a resolution that you have before you. And you need to have a roll call vote on this resolution, but the resolution is an outcome of the audit or the special education review that we had by Bloom Shapiro. And so I'll read the resolution and then we will take a roll call vote. Be it resolved that the Bristol Board of Education authorize its Director of Special Services, Michael Dieter, EDD, to sign special education outplacement contracts on behalf of the Board of Education until otherwise ordered by the Board of Education Commissioners. So, Secretary will call the roll.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes. Do we need to move that first?
There's a resolution, not a motion.
Oh, I'm just asking.
I was thinking exactly the same.
Okay, good.
Commissioner Cashman?
Yes.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yes.
Commissioner Bieber?
Yes.
Commissioner Hess?
Yes.
Commissioner Judy?
Yes.
Chairman Wilson?
Yes. Now we've codified what we've been doing.
Number 10 is curriculum revision. I'm wondering whether or not we have someone pinch hitting from Mrs. Ford. Information processing curriculum. This did come before the Student Achievement Committee meeting for its first reading. I don't believe there's any question or commentary in between, so we would ask for a motion to approve the Information Processing 1 curriculum.
So moved.
Second.
Made and seconded. Any comments on the motion? This is a revision of some existing curriculum. So I think you're ready to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We cannot have new business tonight because technically this is a special meeting since we moved it from our regular meeting. So we won't have new business. We will go information. We'll go on my far left. Commissioner Doobie?
No, I have a liaison report, so we'll go information first, I'm assuming, or do you want
The liaison is coming after the information.
Right, no information.
Commissioner Commissioner Bieber?
I think so. I just wanted to say that on the 14th, on Wednesday the 14th, I will be at the Capitol celebrating Special Education Day with some mothers and fathers and warrior parents from our Bristol Septo Alliance. So we will be there from 10 to 12. Anybody is invited to come. It's at room 310 and hopefully overflow everywhere else in the Capitol to support our special education students. So you're more than welcome to attend.
Commissioner Caggiano?
Just quickly, and I don't think I'll go into much detail, but I had the pleasure of attending the CAVE legislative update with Commissioners Wilson and Bieber, and without going into great detail, I will say that one of the major issues throughout this is resources, as would be considered on the state side. Pertinent to Bristol, there was quite a bit of talk about limiting the executive branch from decreasing ECS funding, especially mid-year. Very difficult for school districts to realign mid-year when they've already allocated their budget, and if we're going through a tough budget process, that is something that we understand. And then there was some talk as well about ensuring state honors its school funding projects, which could potentially affect us here as well in Bristol. And there were a lot of different discussions about removing mandates that fail to promote student achievement. I'm not going to go into too much of the other stuff because it was about an hour and a half meeting, but certainly the only other thing I will say is that we were reminded that this is a short session for the state legislature, so in order for new bills to come up, they need to come in through the committee. But certainly the legislators that were there, and CAVE in particular, said that anybody that is interested should be contacting their legislators, and certainly should probably contact Chris and others on the board to make sure that their voice is heard.
Commissioner O'Brien?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Kelly? Councilman Kelly, I'm sorry. Commissioner Councilman.
Thank you.
in San Francisco.
I wanted to bring up a few points that a constituent brought up to the mayor and the council recently. And as all of you know, I'm sure there's an emphasis now on getting children who are not necessarily college bound into the workforce with high-paying technical jobs. And unfortunately, it appears that our high school students may be co-opted out of this learning opportunity. And I'd like to ask the board what role they can play in advocating for our Bristol Central and Eastern students. And I'll refer back to that with a specific email. Just prior to that, I had a few other points I wanted to touch on. On a positive note, as you know, great work is being done by Mr. Larry Cavino at the Adult Education Center. And I just wanted to mention that the mayor is working with entities to connect and share resources, including the Planned Manufacturing Center at Tungus, Connecticut Workforce Partners, and others. And the mayor and the council will continue these efforts to keep spending and budgets under control. Now, to get back to this gentleman that I'm referring to, his name is Brian, and Brian, his wife, and his oldest son all attended Bristol Tech. They all studied under the HVAC program, and they're all employed in that field right now. It's a family industry. However, their youngest son is having a problem getting into the HVAC program. Now here's a student that knows exactly what he wants to do, but unfortunately, in the 11th grade, he wasn't able to get into the program, so he went into automotive instead. And he's being told that next year that may be problematic as well. And someone, perhaps, if I'm wrong with these figures, somebody can correct me, but from what this gentleman understands, between the HVAC and welding program, there's 24 spots available. And supposedly, all these spots are being filled by postgraduate students. And it's just a concern. He contacted the superintendent of Connecticut, not Dr. Moreau, of Connecticut.
Of the technical high schools?
Yes, of the technical high schools, and this gentleman feels that he's getting the runaround, and he's not getting a good vibe, and he's asking for our help. And this isn't a blind side. We just received this information recently. Otherwise, I would have spoken to someone prior to tonight's meeting. So he's a very reasonable gentleman, both as a, not to repeat myself, his wife, himself, and oldest son, all graduates of Bristol Tech. He's very happy with the program, but he's just asking for our help.
I'm not sure that we can. It's a technical high school. We would love every one of those slots to be for Bristol students, but unfortunately, that is not under our control.
No, I understand that, but I'm just airing it out here.
I certainly do want to look into the HVAC slots being for postgrads, because their day program is supposed to be for juniors and seniors. Their evening program is supposed to be for postgrads. So that, I'd like to educate myself on that.
Right, and I'm not sure, I apologize, I didn't have a chance to verify any of this, but he certainly, I spoke to him today, just prior to the meeting, he certainly sounded like he knew what he was talking about and had done his homework. I unfortunately didn't have the time to do mine. And I understand that, Dr. Moreau, but whatever you can do to help this gentleman and point us in the right direction, I think we owe him that.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Through the chair, if I could, I think I'm hearing the same story, by the way, from some of our state legislators just today. So this gentleman may have, or others may have reached out to our state legislators. I didn't include it in our CAVE legislative update, but that was actually some comments there as well too, that if we move forward, not every child is looking to move on to college. And I do think that maybe through our Student Achievement Committee, we should look at opportunities to bring back more of those educational opportunities here locally. So just something to throw out, but it is interesting how that dovetails with what they talk about.
I don't want to get into a long, in-depth
Yeah.
conversation about it, but we do have a collaboration of manufacturers that we sit and meet with once a month. Our principals meet with them, the guidance counselors meet with them. We're giving those kids opportunity to get out in the field and see manufacturing jobs, do tours of facilities. We've taken them to some trade shows. So the school district is doing something. We do have a pre-engineering curriculum. So we are doing some things. You know, could you do more? I'm sure you always could do more, but I mean, you know, there is opportunity out there. The technical schools are under the direction of the state, and
You know what, I understand that, and he understands it, but he's just so frustrated. He's just reaching out, asking for direction or help, so hopefully
you
there's
know, the Ed
someone.
Foundation used to have a connection to Bristol Tech. She used to come to the meetings, Mrs. Lowry, Maury, but she's not the principal anymore. So, and we probably need to maybe reach out to them because we have done some things for the Ed Foundation has done some things for the technical schools. So maybe Mr. Koleski was in the audience could reach out to some of.
Well, Mr. Wilson, there's a lot of horsepower in this room. So confident somebody can do something to help this gentleman.
Okay. We will now move on to our liaison reports. So I'll start with Mr. O'Brien and we'll circle back around.
Was liaison to the city and my friend Peter. I'd like to thank Jeff and support him in his efforts to talk to the Charter Revision Commission about staggered terms and possibly even repeal of the term limits situation, which as the only elected group in the city that seems to be affected by it, it's somewhat unusual. I would hope that the board as a whole could draft a letter supporting some of the comments that he made and stating our position very clearly that the Charter Revision Commission must address the situation so that we don't have the type of result that he described where everybody would be up at once, which would be insane. A little thoughtfulness, whether it's staggered terms or it's removal of term limits, either solution will resolve the problem. And I would hope that we could draft a letter and have every member of the board sign it and send it to the commission before their rule ends. I'm not sure what the date is where they have to submit information to the city council and recommendations, but I would like to see us do that as soon as possible, maybe send a draft around all board members and let them have an opportunity to comment on it and hopefully have at the next meeting, if that is soon enough. Even if it's not, we should proceed prior to that to send a letter to the board asking them to look at that.
I don't have any liaison reports, although I would like to ask for a little time back just to say that as public disclosure, I did attend the last Charter Revision Committee meeting and did give them some ideas. I will say this publicly as well as I did last month, that I reached out to Chris both at the public session as well as privately. We happened to run each other at the cave day on the hill. I think we could definitely find agreement. I don't know that we'll find 100% agreement, and maybe the term limits might be the hard part. I will state for the record that term limits passed by 78% to 22%. So as I said to the Charter Revision Committee, the cat may be out of the bag for that one. Remember, all of this stuff to get approved has to go through a referendum vote. But again, I'm really willing to work together to make sure that we make sure that this great board is not term limited all at the same time. Again, not that I'm against term limits, but we know we set up a situation that's not...
Whatever we can agree on, we should send to, and if staggered terms, I think is something we all could agree on.
100%. Commissioner Taylor.
On February 12th, I was able to attend the Connecticut Association of Schools Celebration of the Arts, and I was there actually as an art teacher in Hartford, but I was able to also, was very happy actually to see that Bristol had a large number of art teachers there with their students, and if you're not sure of what it is, it's actually where they honor two students that are both talented and show great character. So it's nice, we always see a lot of sports awards, you see academic awards, it's not often that these students get together and really be honored for not only character but their artistic talents. So it was great to see so many Bristol art teachers there, and Dr. Botek did get to speak there also, and she gave Bristol a huge shout out in her speech. I mean, she was talking about them the whole time, so I was sitting there pretty proud. Also, if you are around from 8 to 10 a.m. on March 11th, Green Hills 6th grade is having a pancake breakfast at Applebee's, so it's $5 a person. Usually you get 2 plates. If you're really that hungry, you can get 2 plates pancakes and just support the 6th grade team.
Commissioner Weber.
No report.
Commissioner Hintz.
It's not a liaison report, I'm going back to information, because I can never remember my information comment in time. We didn't get to honor our talented artists. Will we talk about them next month? Okay.
Do you have anything else?
No, that was it. I just want, it's great art.
Commissioner Newby.
Very dramatic move, too.
Thank you, Tom. I do it for you.
Very artistic.
During the month of February, West Bristol held the 2nd annual Global Play Day, where students were encouraged to engage in creative play without any input from teachers or adults. Both my kids, my 5th grader and my 8th grader, got to do it, and they both loved it. West Bristol students also participated in No One Eats Alone Day to promote inclusion while reducing social isolation. And lastly, students and staff enjoyed the Winter Olympics by celebrating the diversity of many nations while participating in friendly competitions.
You know, I happened to see on social media, I guess on Friday, many of our public officials reading with our students on Dr. Seuss Day. So I see some of them in the room, certainly Mr. Kelly, Mayor Zappo, I'm not sure where she is. She's right here over there. I saw a chief reading to our students. I don't know if there was anybody else in the room that I had missed. I'm sure I did. I apologize if I did miss somebody. I didn't see a picture of
I was fortunate that I was there.
You know, and since I couldn't be there on Friday, I did 2 classes on Monday. And after I read, I usually ask a conversation with the students. And, you know, we talk about books, what they like to read, and that kind of thing. And, you know, then we started talking about occupations, what do they want to be when they grow up. And looking at the chief sort of made me think of this is, after MBA stars and after artists, the 3rd most popular occupation was police officer. So, you know, you have some ranks building through our education system, and
big pay difference there, but
but I want to thank you all for reaching out to our schools, and what makes our schools great. You get to learn a lot when you talk to these kids that you are great. I'm sure you all have the same experience. Now we are going to vote to move into executive session to discuss our safety and security for our district-wide schools. Entering executive session with us this evening will be our district leadership team, Mayor Zappo, Police Chief Gould, Safety Director Greg Belanger, and Board of Ed Liaison Peter Kelly. So we will meet upstairs in room 36.